Hey, okay, I did make up a list. I don't know where it is at the moment. I lost it. But one of the movies I do remember watching is A Clockwork Orange. And so we'll go ahead and do that one. Um, it was made in 1971, so I guess I'm a wee bit late with this review, but whatever. The reason I watched the movie in the first place is because The Simpsons did a parody of it for their Treehouse of Horror this year, 2010, and Maggie looked like the guy from The Clockwork Orange, and I didn't know what that meant, so I wanted to watch the movie, see if I could understand the parody. I don't. If you do, can you let me know what it was so I kind of get it? Um, anyway, to the movie, I do have to say I was working on a term paper while watching the movie, so if I don't remember or understand what happened in the movie, just say I was kind of um, learning about Sweden at the time, so the two didn't really mix. Alright, so the main character's name is Alex. I had to IMDb it because I forgot, and I felt I should at least say his name so I didn't have to start calling him like Maggie or something, which I was planning on. But, alright, the movie really focuses around Alex. It starts off him and his crew of poorly dressed men hang out at this bar that serves different types of milk. I don't understand. I think there's like some psychedelic milk or something. I don't know. It takes place in Britain, so blame the Brits for being British. Anyway, so they do that, then they go out and they terrorize the town. They beat up a hobo. They actually a little bit stop their gang from gang raping this girl. By the way, I want to interject here. 70s, I hate you and you're making the films because you love nudity, and I'm not a fan. No, please not leave it to the pornos to do nudity because that's why people watch pornos. Watching a movie, it makes it very awkward and just ridiculous. Just keep them clothed. Okay, I understand the gang raping, but I mean, no, it didn't have to be full on nudity. Thank you very much. Anyway, so they beat up this gang that was trying to do that, and I'm like, oh, okay, so they're kind of redeem worthy. I mean, they hate hobos, but they stopped a gang until they go on to kind of bust into this guy's house, and it's just this guy and this lady living there. They beat up the guy to where he's paralyzed from the waist down, and then they rape his wife right in front of him. Yeah, I'm kind of done with liking any of these characters. And so I guess that's just a typical Saturday night for them all. Basically, I think the gang's getting kind of mad at Alex because of whatever Alex does. But then they kind of show him the next day, and Alex is he picked up these girls at like a record place. He really likes Mozart or whatever, so he's like impressing these girls with his Mozart knowledge because that's kind of how to do that. Takes him back to his place. He has a threesome with him while listening to Mozart, which I gotta say is probably a better sex album than someone's playlist. It's like sex playlist, and it's literally songs just singing about sex. No, you didn't try hard at all. Like, that's worse than listening to Chuck Berry, which is a cliche. Come on, just be like, as soon as you hear this music, no thank you, walk away, because they give it no thought. It's very generic. No. Anyway, so then that happens, and he meets up with his gang later. And his gang is kind of like, hey, we don't want you as our leader. He's kind of like, okay. I kind of miss what happened there. It's very awkward, though. But all in all, then they're, showing him walking down, and Alex is doing a voiceover or whatever. And then he beats up his gang. There are three other guys, two of them at least bigger than Alex. No, that is not possible. Alex's gang, you can take him down. Just saying, you can do that. Nice try, but you just failed at life. And so, whatever, Alex is leader again. And they decide to go, like, go rape a yoga instructor. Now, um, and Alex is the one that breaks into the house. She calls the police, so they're on their way. He knocks her unconscious with a giant penis statue he found in there. So he runs out of the house, and his gang's like, oh, haha, police are here. Throws milk in his face, and it burns his eyes. So he literally can't run away from the cops now because his eyes are just so burning from whatever they threw at him. And so he gets carted off to jail. He's kind of like a jackass in jail to the cops, which you can't do that because they don't mind beating you. They just don't. Which is what happened. I should mention, I guess I forgot this. Earlier in the thing, you learned that Alex lives with his parents because he goes to school, and his teacher visits him, and his teacher is very awkward and kind of felt him up, so there's a reason I think Alex is skipping school. But anyway, the teacher comes, I guess, to talk to him in jail, and they're telling him, like, hey, which is a crime, like, you broke in, you've been raping, and you murdered this lady. And they say it very joyously. They're laughing, just having a good time. I'm like, what he did was really serious, and you're not getting that across. Just you're like, haha, she's dead. No, that's just not how it goes. And so, Alex gets thrown in jail. And this is one of the parts that I was working on my paper, so I don't know what happened. But I do remember this. I was on my computer, like, typing stuff up. My dad comes up the stairs, and he's like, so what do you think of the movie? I'm like, it's really odd. And he's like, oh, that's not an appropriate scene. And I look up, and Alex is naked, bending over, because the cops have to check him. I'm like, oh, no thank you. So, then, once again, I'm spacing out. Next time I think I'm really watching it is when he's talking to the Reverend about this experiment he's heard that gets people out of jail and keeps them out of jail. And he wants to be a part of it, and somehow, I don't really care how, he got into the experiment. And he's real excited about it. But, so they take him to a hospital. He's out of jail in a hospital doing this experiment. It's supposed to be 2 weeks. And what happens is every day he's injected with what they say are vitamins, but actually it's something that makes him really nauseous and queasy and kind of like he'd rather die than have that feeling anymore. And while that's affecting him, he's watching things like beating up, rape, Nazis, murdering. And the really famous scene that gets parodied a lot, or at least I've seen it parodied, is where they, clip his eyes with, like, paper clips, is what it looked like to me. But, so he's doing that, watching this screen. He has to watch it while this feeling is going on, so he associates the two, that, hey, this crap is bad, it makes you feel like this. So, that's what happens to him. And he does this twice a day, every day for 2 weeks. So he really gets that feeling in him. And what I thought about was Pavlov's experience, dog in the bell. But I also remember being taught that if you do it continuously and not have a break from it, they don't really learn. I don't know. I got really into a psychological argument in my head about how this movie is probably false. So, whatever. While he's watching these videos, though, Mozart, like one of his favorite Mozart songs, I'm going to call it Symphony No. 7 because I have no idea what it was, plays over Nazi footage, and he really freaks out because now he's associating this one song with this feeling, and he's really mad about this. Anyway, after the 2 weeks goes by, they say he's cured, which he's not really cured. He just feels like crap every time he wants to do something bad, so he can't. So the doctors have a skit in front of a bunch of people on some guys, beating Alex up, and Alex can't do anything because he gets all nauseous and stuff. And this feeling is he really would rather die. He'd rather commit suicide than ever feel like this. So, and then they bring out like a naked lady, and he reaches up to like grab her boobs, but he can't because he has this feeling again. So they've taken away sex out of his life in general too, and that's whatever. But then he's released, and he goes back home because he lived with his mom and dad, and instead they got a new son, who's kind like the mom's really annoying, the dad's really terrified of life, and this new son's kind of a prick. I don't know if I can say that word. The sign is this, so he's kind of this. I didn't like him. He was very mean to this kid, and I understand this kid, murders and rapes people, but come on. So there really are no redeeming characters at all in this movie. So he gets kicked out. He doesn't have anywhere to go, so he's walking along like this bridge, and he was looking at the water, and some bum comes up to him. I don't know what the politically correct term is, homeless person, comes up and asks him for money. Now, Brits, I don't understand your currency, so it might have been a pence, a pound, I don't know how much alcohol is over there, so I assume it's so he could buy alcohol. So he asks for some money, Alex gives him some money, and then the hobo recognizes Alex as the guy who beat him up. And so Alex is like trying to walk away because, can't confront him because he's a wuss now. And then instead, he walks under the bridge where I guess all the hobos hang out. Like, that's just good times for them. And there's about 20 of them, they all just beat up on Alex. And then the cops show up. There are 2 cops that show up, and they get the hobos off. And guess what? The cops are Alex's old crew. Okay, Britain. It hasn't even been a year since when Alex was in jail. Collectively, they probably have an IQ of like 20. And they murder and rape and break in and just beat up on people. But you let them become police officers. Okay. So they recognize Alex. They still hate Alex for some reason. I mean, yes, I understand, like, he cut you with a knife, but you kind of deserved it. So they take him out to the middle of nowhere. They kind of drown him in, like, one of those horse troughs or whatever. I don't know if trough is the right word, but that big giant thing with water that horses drink out of. They dunk his head in there, and one of the guys is like, hey, come on, let's stop. And the other one responds, no, he's still kicking. You can't murder people. That's just it. You can't. But he's not dead. They just leave him. And so he goes to whatever house he finds. Turns out it's the man he paralyzed. Well, yeah, that was bound to happen. The wife died, so he doesn't have to deal with her. And by the way, he was wearing a mask when he did all his, like, Harmon people or whatever, so they didn't recognize him until he started singing in the Rain, because that's what he was singing while he was raping the wife. And Wheelchair Man, because I told you he was paralyzed from the waist down, found out, he freaked out, and this was like the weirdest shot in the movie. It was an angle where it's like looking up at him, like the camera was in his lap. He was very upset, he's freaking out. I'm like, it was just weird, didn't really belong. I didn't like that shot. But, he devised a plan where he brought some of his friends over. I need to wrap this up. But they made him listen to Mozart, the Symphony Number 7, or whatever I said, the made-up one. He jumps out the window because he wanted to commit suicide, and turns out he ended up in the hospital because he didn't die. And now I think he was cured of that feeling, so he can go back to doing whatever. All in all, it's a weird movie. I don't really ever want to see it again. It was good, but I really don't ever want to see it again. So, yeah, I just want to know how it related to The Simpsons. If you can tell me that, thank you. I do recommend watching the movie if you haven't yet. It's been around for a few years now, but have fun with it. It's kind of long, so do whatever you want. Alright.